This morning, the death toll is rising in eastern Ukraine after a barrage of new Russian missile strikes. Ukrainian officials say at least 2 people were killed, dozens more injured in Sloviansk. Several high-rise buildings, civilian buildings that were targeted, were reduced to rubble and ashes. Explosions also rocking the Russian-occupied city of Melitopol. This dashcam video capturing the billowing smoke. These strikes came less than 24 hours after Vladimir Putin announced plans to move and station tactical nuclear weapons, like the ones in this missile here we're showing you, in Belarus. Putin says he wants to store them there by summer, which means they could be closer to Ukraine, but also to NATO's borders. With me now is the Belarusian political activist and opposition leader, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Nice to have you on again.
Good morning.
First, I want to ask you about Putin's threat here to move nuclear weapons to Belarus. Does this, in your view, amount to Russia threatening Ukraine with a nuclear attack?
First of all, it's aiming to subjugate Belarus, and it violates our constitution, it violates international security, and of course, it's against Belarusian people's will. We are non-nuclear country, and we don't want to deploy a nuclear weapon in our state.
He's made nuclear threats before, as have other Russian officials, including former president as well, Medvedev. Are these just threats, or do you believe he may actually use such weapons?
I think that dictators in this difficult situation for them can make crazy steps, but I think the democratic world has to show that it will not be tolerated, and strong steps must be made, to stop these steps from fulfilling.
As you know, Putin has at times pressured the Belarusian president Lukashenko to supply forces and weapons to help in his invasion of Ukraine. It hasn't happened yet. Do you believe it may happen now as the Russian president makes plans to move nuclear weapons there?
So actually, it's a wrong perception that Putin pushes Lukashenko to do something. They are on the one side of this war, they are collaborating. Lukashenko became full accomplice in this war, and he fulfills all the orders of Putin. The fact that Belarusian troops haven't been sent to Belarus is not the merit of Lukashenko, it's merit of Belarusian people who are against participation of Belarus in this war, and our Belarusian soldiers don't have anti-Ukrainian moods. They don't want to kill or to be killed on the battlefields for the ambitions of terror usurpers. And Lukashenko is absolutely responsible for crimes of aggression against Ukraine, and he have to be called sponsor of terrorism and have to be brought to accountability for this.
You, I should remind people watching, they may not be aware, but you ran against Lukashenko for president. You say the election was stolen from you, and since then you paid a price. Your husband is still held in a Russian prison more than 2 years now. Do you fear that the world is overlooking Russia's aggression in Belarus? Of course, there's a war in Ukraine, but that Belarus is not getting the attention it deserves.
I think that at the moment Belarus is actually overlooked, and maybe not all the politicians understand the role of Belarus in regional peace and security. And I really want the USA and President Biden and State Department to look more deeply into this problem, and not to leave Belarus for one day later, after we will deal with Ukraine, and then we will return to Belarus. We don't have to forget that Belarusian people now are fighting not only against Lukashenko's regime, but also against hybrid occupation of Russia. In Belarus, we see the increasing level of violence, repressions. Thousands of people are in prisons for political motivated cases. Hundreds of thousands had to flee Belarus because of repressions. And one day we can wake up and see that Belarus has left as consolation prize for Putin. And I'm sure that Belarus is a key state for keeping security in Europe.
You're in Washington this week to meet with U.S. officials in part. Is the U.S. doing enough for Belarus in your view?
The nations who are going through violations of their rights, who are in difficult position, are sure that much more could be done. and we are grateful to the USA for all the acts of solidarity and support to our people, but I think that more pressure can be imposed on Belarusian regime, and more support can be provided to Belarusian people who are resistant now to all this. And also we are calling now international community to bring Lukashenko to accountability through possible mechanisms like ICC. You can start investigation on his crimes against humanity and crimes of aggression. But several steps have been made recently by the USA, just a new package of sanctions and a launch of strategic dialogue with democratic Belarus was started, and we appreciate this step. Also, a special envoy will be sent to democratic forces to Lithuania to build these bridges between our countries.
I want to ask about your husband. He's serving an 18-year prison sentence simply for challenging Lukashenko. You have not been able to speak to him for, I believe, more than 2 years now. Do you have any idea what his state of health is and what his prospects are for release?
So all our political prisoners, including my husband, are ill-treated, humiliated physically and morally in prisons. So they are in extremely poor position there, but they are keeping strong. They know that Belarusian society and international world are fighting for them. They believe in us, they believe in international laws and in solidarity, and I think that we can't betray them. We have to release all of our political prisoners and get rid of Lukashenko's regime in Belarus.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and we hope your family is reunited soon.